Hello, I'm Jashikins, and welcome to another episode of Jash Reads. This time, the fourth chapter of Animorphs #1 Invasion by K. Applegate. And my hat is just fucking hilarious. Anyways. Yeerks. The twin red lights slowed. They turned in a circle and came back toward us. There is no more time. You must decide. We have to do this, Tobias said. How else can we fight these controllers? This is so insane, Marco said. Insane? I'd like more time, but we don't have that choice, Rachel said. I'm for it. What do you say, Jake? Cassie asked me. It was odd. Like suddenly I was the one who had to decide for everyone. I looked up at the Yeerks ships. What had the Andalite called them? Bug fighters? They were circling closer, like dogs sniffing for a scent. I looked down at the Andalite and remembered the picture of his family. Would they even know what had happened to him? I looked at each of the people around me. My usually funny, occasionally annoying best friend Marco. Rachel, my smart, pretty, confident cousin. And Cassie, who everyone knew liked animals more than she liked most people. Finally, I looked at Tobias. It was weird, the feeling I had at that moment, staring at him, a chill or something. We have to, Tobias said to me. Slowly I nodded. Yes, we have no choice. Then each of you press your hand against one of the sides of the square. We did. 5 hands, each pressed against one side. Then a 6th hand, different from ours, with too many fingers. Do not be afraid, the Andalite said. Something like a shock, only pleasurable, seemed to run through me. A tingle that almost made me laugh. Go now, the Andalite said. Only remember this. Never remain in animal form for more than 2 of your Earth hours. Never. That is the greatest danger of the morphine. If you stay longer than 2 hours, you will be trapped, unable to return to human form. 2 hours, I repeated. Suddenly some new fear washed through the Andalite's mind. Linked as I was to him, I could feel it as a dread that crawled up my spine. He was staring up at the sky with his main eyes. Something else was up there with the bug fighters. Visher 3, he comes. What? I was shaken with this new terror. What's a Visher? Who's a Visher? Go now, run. Visher 3 is here. He is the most deadly of your enemies. Of all Yeerks, he alone has the power to morph. The same power you now have. Run. No, we'll stay with you, Rachel said firmly. Maybe we can help. Again, it was as if the alien was smiling at us with his eyes. No, you must save yourselves. Save yourself and save your planet. The Yeerks are here. We all looked up, craning our necks. Sure enough, the 2 red lights were sinking toward us, and they had been joined by a 3rd ship, far larger, black as a shadow within a shadow. But how are we supposed to fight these controllers? Rachel demanded. You must find a way. Now run. I jerked from the force of his command. He's right. Run, I yelled. We ran, all but Tobias, who knelt beside the Andalite and took his hand. The Andalite pressed his other hand against Tobias's head. Tobias rocked back like he'd been shocked. Then he too was up and running, stumbling over the loose junk and potholes of the construction site. A beam of bright red light snapped on. It was a spotlight from one of the bug fighters. The beam lit up the fallen Andalite and his ship. A spotlight from the second bug fighter joined the first, and the Andalite shone brilliant as a star. I hit the dirt hard. I saw my leg lit up within the circle of that spotlight. I yanked it to me and crawled fast, scraping my elbows and knees over sharp stones. The 5 of us crouched behind a low, crumbled wall, afraid to move, afraid to look, but just as afraid to look away. Slowly the bug fighters descended. It was easy to see where they'd gotten their nickname. They were slightly larger than the Andalite fighter and shaped like legless cockroaches. There were small windows like eyes on the forward thrust head of the bug, and on either side of the head were 2 very long, very sharp, serrated spears. The Yeerk bug fighters touched down, one on either side of the Andalite ship. "Okay, you can wake me up now," Marco said in a rattled whisper. "I've had enough of this dream." The larger ship began to descend. I don't know what it was about that ship, but as it got closer, I started to feel like I couldn't breathe. I tried to suck in a deep lungful of air and couldn't. I tried to swallow and couldn't. I wanted to run, but my legs were jelly. I was shaking from a fear so deep it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. It was the same fear that the Andalite had shown when he'd realized Fisher 3 was coming. The ship settled toward the ground. It looked like it was going to land directly on a big, rusted earth mover parked there. But as the Fisher ship descended, the earth mover just sizzled and disappeared. Fisher 3's ship was built like some ancient weapon. It reminded me of one of those battle axes the old-time knights used when they were hacking off the heads of their foes. There was a main part, like the handle of the axe, with a big triangular point on the front. That part had to be the bridge. At the rear were 2 huge scimitar wings. It was 8 or 10 times the size of the bug fighters. The blade ship landed. A door opened. Cassie started to scream. I clinged my hand over her mouth. They leaped from the ship, whirling and thrusting and slicing the air, creatures that looked like walking weapons. They stood on 2 bent back legs and had 2 very long arms. On each arm there were curved horn blades growing out of the wrist and elbow. There were other blades at their bent back knees, and 2 more blades at the end of their tails. They had feet like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. But it was the head that got your attention, a neck like a snake, a mouth that was almost a falcon's beak, and from the forehead 3 dagger-like horns raked forward. Bajir controllers. I jumped, hearing the Andalite's words in my mind again. They were fainter than before, strained like someone yelling from far away. "Did you guys?" I asked. Rachel nodded. "Yeah. The Bajir are good people, despite their fearsome looks," the Andalite said. "But they have been enslaved by the Yeerks. Each of them now carries a Yeerk in his head. They are to be pitied." "Pity, right," Rachel said grimly. "They're walking killing machines. Look at them." But our attention was drawn away by a new form that crept and slithered and shimmied out of the blade ship. "Toxin controllers," the Andalite said. I knew he was trying to tell us all he could, even to the end, trying to prepare us for what we were up against. "The toxins are evil." "Yeah," Marco muttered. "I think I would have guessed that." They were like Massive centipedes, twice as long as a grown man, so big around that if you tried to hug one, your arms wouldn't make it even halfway. Not that anyone would ever want to. They had dozens of legs that supported the lower 2/3 of their bodies. The top third was held upright, and there the rows of legs became smaller, with little lobster claw hands. Around the top of their disgusting tubular bodies were 4 eyes, each like a wiggling globule of red jello, and at the very end, pointing straight up in the air, was a round mouth ringed by hundreds of tiny teeth. Hork-Bajir and toxins poured from the blade ship, spreading out around the area like well-trained Marines. They were holding small, pistol-sized things that were definitely weapons. They formed a ring around the Andalite and his ship. Suddenly, one of the Hork-Bajir came straight toward us. He took one big, bounding step, and he was practically on top of us. I hugged the dirt like it was my last hope. I wished I could dig a hole. I saw a flash of Marco's face. His eyes were huge. His lips were drawn back in what could have been a grin, except that I knew it was an expression of pure terror. And that's the end of the 4th chapter. Nice, happy, young adult series. And I'm wondering why I'm so messed up as an adult. That's the first series I've ever read. To no happiness. So if you have any comments or questions about this chapter, please say so below. And as always, I'm going to take a little shot, and if you drink, you can pull something out, and if you don't drink, or you're underage, drink some water, soda, or whatever you have lying about. Okay, hopefully that's actually less. But yeah, I really fucking love this hat, and it was like hard to do this read through of this chapter with the hat, because anytime I look up, I was just like, I had to really control myself from laughing my ass off. So here's to a decent read through. I sort of actually like the alcohol that's a little hard to go down, because it helps you keep track of how much you're actually drinking. And yeah. And until next video, goodbye.